Welcome. So today our webinar is about summarising the information that we have on the compensation scheme as it is currently proposed. We know there's a lot more to discuss and many things that that people are really concerned about. And I guess that, what we hope is that this is the first of many sessions that we'll be streaming on webinars. And hopefully we can cover the wider scope, more issues. Very quickly, though, I do want to put a disclaimer in. This presentation, and today's session is based on our understanding of the compensation scheme so far. And I think, as you all know, we cannot guarantee that the information won't change, which is why we are hoping to do more webinars as we move forward and information is changing. Anyway, that's enough for me. I'm going to hand it over to Layla, who's going to introduce the sessions and how it's all going to work today. Layla.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I'm attempting to share the slides, but there seems to be a slight technical hitch. So if you'll just bear with me 1 second, we should have them up now. Come on. Rachel or Meg or Susan, can you confirm that you can see the first slide?
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Right, hi everyone. Rachel wonderfully covered this bit when I was trying to sort out the IT, so I won't get that again. So here we are. Thank you very much for being here. So we have set this up as a Zoom webinar, and we've done that essentially so that we can record it without recording any anyone attending. So everyone here is anonymous, and it means that we can record it and we can put it online in the coming few days. So the way it's going to work is, because it's a webinar, no one is going to be able to switch on their camera or their microphone, and there isn't a chat, but there is a Q&A. So there's a Q&A system. It's just, hopefully you can see on the slide, just at the bottom of your screen, circled in red, I said it in red, there's a little button to hit the Q&A. You can post questions there. You can post them anonymously if you prefer, or you can post them with your name or a different name, however you want to post. And Rachel and Meg and I are going to be keeping an eye on that while Susan leads the majority of the webinar. There is also a function where if someone has asked a question you think is really important, you can what's called upvote it. So you can sort of like it, and that should push it up the agenda for people to answer. So we're hoping that's the kind of, it's not incredibly interactive, but we had nearly 500 people sign up for this webinar. So we kind of want to get a basic amount of information to as many people as we can. We feel like this is probably the best way to do that. And hopefully in future we can do things that are a bit more interactive and a bit smaller scale. Just a few final housekeeping points before I hand over to Susan. So we received about over 300 questions from people as they were signing up to the webinar. So thank you all very much for those. We have tried to answer as many as possible within the content of the webinar that you'll watch over, you'll see over the next hour or so. There will be time for questions at the end and as we go, and as I say, we'll feed questions in as they come through the Q&A to Susan. We are assuming that we know that some people here will have a really, really good knowledge of the compensation system and how it's likely to look and all of those sorts of things, and other people won't have much knowledge at all. So we're trying to kind of set this, set a kind of baseline, get as much basic knowledge to everyone as possible through this session. And we're visiting a kind of similar set of topics as the Haemophilia Society webinar that they did a couple of weeks ago. So you might, if you attended that one as well, you might see some similarities there. And thank you to Jeff for helping a bit with this one as well. I think that's really all I need to cover. And so I will hand over to Susan. Susan, I'm going to try and make you the host so you can move the slides. Okay, that should be. You got that? Does that mean that you can't see the slides anymore?
That does actually. So I think I might have to just let you take that back from me.
All right,
we'll just ask you to move them on when I'm ready, if that's okay, Lena.
I will be the slide person. All right, bear with me 1 second.
Thank
I'll
you.
just come back. Okay. Okay. All right.
Perfect. Okay. So the agenda for this evening really, and the purpose of the webinar, is for us to be able to provide you with an overview of some of the key points of the system. And those will include things like registering and applying to the Infected Blood Compensation Authority for people that are already registered with one of the current infected blood support schemes, or for new applicants. The proposed or the structure for compensation system as currently proposed, and an overview of the awards that are currently being proposed. So there are some key changes that have taken place, and as you probably know, the infected blood support schemes, so the ones that pay your regular monthly or quarterly payments, will continue for people who are already eligible for the current support schemes. And we have been told that those support schemes will open to applicants until the 31st of March 2025. So if you haven't currently registered for one of the existing support schemes, you do have until the 31st of March 2025 to check your eligibility and apply to one of those schemes. And payments until the 31st of March 2025 will not be affected, will not affect your compensation. So eligibility for the infected blood support schemes at present will not change. So we know there have been some variations with the report with cut-off dates, but as we know at the moment, none of the current infected blood support schemes eligibility criteria will change. We don't know when the Infected Blood Compensation Authority will open for applications at this time, but people already registered with one of the infected blood support schemes, we do know will not need to apply. They will have their data automatically transferred across. We know as well that more people will be eligible for compensation, and the criteria has been opened and extended to people who have been given hepatitis C, the hepatitis B virus, and those people who have naturally cleared their hepatitis C. And also, as I mentioned just now, there will be no hard cut-off dates for infection. So people given hepatitis C after September 1991 can apply, but evidential requirements will be higher. So the Infected Blood Support Scheme and the new Infected Blood Compensation Authority. So at the moment, for people already registered with one of the infected blood support schemes, those on an infected blood support scheme, so for example, the England infected blood scheme, the Scottish, Welsh, etc., will be contacted by that organisation to ask that your information and your data and that of your family, or that of your family, sorry, can be transferred to the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. And we're hoping that that will happen within the next month or so. It's therefore really important that they have those right contact details for you, because that will be the basis on which they will contact you to give you a tariff offer and start your compensation. The Infected Blood Compensation Authority will be making those payments to individuals, and they have told us that they aim to start making those payments in the latter part of 2024. Updates on the process and timelines will come through the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. They told us that they're providing regular updates now through their newsletters and their emails, but we haven't had any confirmation, and there's no further information currently on the exact dates. Estate interim payments will begin in October, and if the interim payment has not already been received by a bereaved partner. So if you're on a current support scheme and you are the widow of somebody who has died and you have received the £100,000 interim payment, that will be the only payment that will be made in respect of the interim offer. If you're an estate and nobody has claimed the widow's payment, you will be open to, or you will be able to receive that payment moving forward from October. And registration for this interim payment, as we said, will open in late October, and the payment will be handled by a new service called the Infected Blood Interim Compensation Payment Scheme, where previously it was thought that it would be handled under the existing blood support schemes. It's not the case. So it will be this new compensation scheme that will be handling it. So, applying to the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. So for people who are not yet registered with an infected blood support scheme, so the England, Scottish scheme, so on and so forth, we don't know precisely when applications will be open. We have asked the question to IBCA, but we're still waiting confirmation. And as soon as we hear that, we will pass that on to the community. There is not yet information on exactly what documentation will be required for new applications, but the Infected Blood Compensation Authority are putting guidance together on this, but we don't know when this will be available at present. However, what we do know is that it will probably require some of the evidential requirements of the current infected blood support scheme. So at the moment, we would recommend that people start getting their paperwork in order. And in order to do that, some of the things that we think that you should be looking for would be things like proof of hepatitis C infection, proof of a transfusion and or blood products, proof of the relationship for people that have been affected. And obviously collecting this data and this paperwork will help you when the application process becomes available. The inquiry recommends that the burden of proof will be less stringent in the current support schemes. We have asked this question again to IBCA as to how that will materialise in the new Infected Blood Compensation Authority. And they said that they haven't necessarily published any data on that as yet, but they will keep us informed as soon as there are any updates to this. So now we look at the proposed award structure. So it is a little bit complicated. So we've tried to keep it as simple as possible with showing you these kind of core areas. And basically, the core route is intended to provide a way for most people applying to the scheme to receive compensation that's basically reflective of their circumstances. And also, this is meant to be done promptly without having to provide lots of additional information or go through in-depth assessments if you decide to go down what they call the core route or the tariff-based route. So just sort of working through the actual core route itself, you've got a number of different categories that go through the core route. So the core award will be calculated based on these 5 categories that you see in the purple box. So the first one that you've got is something called an Injury Impact Award. And just to sort of put that into plain English, an Injury Impact Award, which will basically recognise the physical and mental injury suffered, as well as emotional distress and injury to feelings that may have been caused or will be felt as a direct result of infected blood or related medical treatment. Next, we have something called the Social Impact Award. The Social Impact Award recognises the past and future social consequences of the infection, so things like social isolation and stigma. We also then have something called the Autonomy Award. The Autonomy Award basically provides additional redress for the distress and suffering caused by the impact of the disease, including interference with a family and private life. So, for example, maybe the loss and the loss of having children and the impact that that had. And then finally, we've got the Care Award, which recognises past and future care needs and associated losses. And then we've got the Financial Loss Award, and again, which recognises past and future financial loss suffered as a result of infection. So that's the core tariff-based route. There is also something that runs alongside that called the supplementary route. So if you believe that either your care or your financial losses that you sustained are more than in the tariff-based structure, you can apply to go down a supplementary route, and you would need to provide additional evidence to substantiate the losses that you sustained, either in relation to care or financial loss, and then an enhanced payment, if it was accepted, will go through under the supplementary route. There's also one final group as well called the Health Impact Group. And this is essentially for people who currently fit under the current infected blood support schemes, SCM mechanism payment. So that's the special category mechanism payment, which is under the current infected blood scheme, and for people with other long-term health impacts or treatments. So people that fall into the health impact category will get an uplifted payment, and we'll go on to talk about that a little bit later. I do really want to have a little stop here, Layla, because I can see there's some chat, some questions coming through on the chat.
Yeah, there was just a couple that might fit in here, Susan. So there was one about the application forms. I know it seems a small question, but I think it's really important. The application forms, were they available in paper form for people who are not IT literate? Do we know that?
Yes, we do. So we've raised that as well. And also for people that are vulnerable, people that are elderly, people that are dealing with illness, there should be some kind of mechanism whereby they have with the current support schemes where somebody can actually help you complete your paperwork as well. So not only will it be in different formats, so online, paper-based, there should be additional support for individuals to be able to have somebody work with them one-to-one to be able to fill out that paperwork as well, is what they're indicating to us at present.
Brilliant, thank you. And then there's just one other one. Well, there's actually quite a few questions, but quite a few people have put their thumbs up for this one. Will the information of the deceased member also be transferred to IBCA, infected blood, so they have the dates of the infection, etc.?
Yes, so if your deceased loved one is already registered with one of the current infected blood support schemes, any data that they hold on that individual will be automatically transferred once they get you to sign data protection, a disclosure form or a consent form for you allowing that data to be transferred over to the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. And that's why we've stated quite clearly at the beginning, it's really important that you look out for those letters and make sure you sign them so that part can happen automatically and their data can be transferred across if they are already registered and already have a registration number with one of the current support schemes. If they don't, you will need to apply from scratch.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And there's one here. I think we probably, just before we move on, because I know we could get stuck on, there's so many questions coming through, but it comes up. It's about, somebody's put, is the Skipton Fund a part of this? And I think it's really important to clear this up.
Right, so the Skipton Fund was historic. So the Skipton Fund did make payments a long time ago. They actually ceased to operate, and in November 2017, the England Infected Blood Support Scheme took over at that point in their respective schemes. So no, there is no Skipton Fund anymore. But however, if you've had your data registered with Skipton and you never went on to an infected blood support scheme, you can go to a set of solicitors called Russell Cook, and there's a lady there called Julie Collingham, and she basically coordinates all the archive files of people that were registered with Skipton. So if you were registered with Skipton, but you're not registered with a current support scheme, please do get in contact either with us or with Julie Collingham from Russell Cook, and then your files or your deceased loved one's files can be pulled from archive, and then that can be sent over to one of the current schemes. You wouldn't need to prove eligibility again if they'd already been accepted onto Skipton.
That's a really thorough answer. Thank you. I'm going to stop with the questions now because I think you're going to cover some of it in the next slides.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. Okay, so going back to looking at this core route, or this tariff-based route, and like we just talked about a moment ago, the core award will be based on those 5 categories of injury. So like I said, it's the injury impact, social impact, autonomy, care award, and financial loss award. So all successful claimants will have a core element as part of their compensation. For many, all of their claim will fall under the core tariff scheme. So this is essentially because the government have put together set tariff rates based on your level of infection and based on basically what they have looked at with their groups as to what are suitable payments for each of those categories, and put together awards that they think are fair based on a core route. The core payments all include all of the categories of award in the box in purple. The amount you receive for the categories of award are listed in the various tables, and they are available on the Infected Blood Compensation webpage. And I think we've made a link available at the end of that. So if you don't have that, it should be accessible via the link, and then you will see basically a series of different boxes and charts that show you exactly how to calculate your payments depending upon which categories you fall in. The injury, autonomy, and social award are currently set figures, and depending on the type and severity of infection and whether the recipient is infected or affected. And the financial and care awards, if these apply, and they may not apply to all people that are affected, are based on years and level of infection. So we talked a little bit about the supplementary route, and we've said if you're not happy and you want to dispute some of the financial losses in regard to either care or financial loss, you can go down something called this supplementary route. The supplementary route, as we said, is only available to either care or financial loss. It is not available to challenge the injury, social impact, or autonomy awards. Those will remain the same. So people who can demonstrate that their financial awards do not reflect their earnings lost due to infection, people who can demonstrate that their care needs were above what was set out in the core award. So essentially, if you can demonstrate that and you want to go down this supplementary route and you believe that you have you require a higher payment in regard to those 2 areas or one of those 2 areas, you will be asked to provide some form of additional evidence or something to substantiate your claim that you were a high earner, or, for example, you had to go into early retirement, let's say, and therefore your financial loss was impacted severely because of that. So in those circumstances, you will actually be required to produce some kind of letters, data, or information to support that claim, and then that will be looked at by an assessor. So with regard to the health impact groups, and as we said, those are for people who are currently on the infected blood schemes who fit under the SCM category. So people who fit in the category called the health impact group, this includes people who currently receive the SCM and people with other health impacts due to infection or treatment. So if you're on the scheme at the moment and you're receiving the SCM, you will go down this supplementary route to have your losses increased with regard to care and financial loss. And people that are not on one of the infected blood schemes, but do have other long-term health impacts of either the hepatitis C virus itself or its treatment, they can apply to fit into one of the health impact groups to have an uplift in either their care or their financial loss. So the current proposal is for the health impact groups to receive an uplift of their award equivalent to the award for people in the cirrhosis category. And you can see that on the tables that are provided in the IBCA documents. And that's for, like I said, financial loss and care, but not for any other categories. Your categories of award will absolutely stay the same, i.e. in the chronic category, but you will be uplifted to the cirrhosis category for care and financial loss. So looking at the award payment, if you are a person with hepatitis B, C, or HIV, or a bereaved partner, you will have a choice about how you are to receive your award. So the choice is that you can either receive these awards as a lump sum payment, i.e. the whole amount is paid to you upfront, or you can receive them as periodical payments. So you could have them spread over 5, 10, or 25-year periods. However, please note that payments to estates will only be paid via lump sum. We've also asked the question, and we've been told that if someone's health gets worse after the award, for example, they are currently in the chronic category, but they go on to develop cirrhosis, they will be able to go back to the Infected Blood Compensation Authority for an uplift or increased compensation to move to a different category. So the Infected Blood Support Scheme support payments for people currently receiving support payments, i.e. you are on one of the Infected Blood Support Schemes. So the choice is that you can either continue with those support payments and they will continue to be paid to you monthly or quarterly, however you receive them. So there will be no change there if you continue to be paid like that. Or you can opt out of future support payments and receive a higher compensation award, and that will include your future care and financial loss. The support payments, if you continue to take them, being paid monthly or every quarter, will be uplifted annually by the Consumer Price Index. And we know that the lump sum for support payments will presume average life expectancy of 85 years for males and 87 years for females, as calculated this year. Layla, did we have any other chats or questions coming through at this moment?
Sorry, doing the slides as well makes it very difficult to.
Sorry, Layla.
I've just sent
find myself. Rachel.
Well, I've just sent the questions over to you as well, Layla, just to say you've got a little insight.
Thank you.
I think I'm just trying to, there's an awful lot of questions. So I guess there's one that probably relates a little bit to something you said earlier. If already on SCM after having applied and being accepted by IBS, surely that should be enough information to warrant the uplift by IBCA. I'm a little bit, I don't quite get that. Do you get that one, Susan?
Yeah, that's fine. Actually, that's really funny because I asked that question to IBCA this afternoon.
Brilliant.
So if you are on the SCM at the moment, my question to them was, if you're on the SCM and you've proved it to the support scheme that you're under, for example, the England Infected Blood Support Scheme, why do we have to go down the supplementary route? Shouldn't they be able to access the tariff payment without any additional information? And the answer is yes. So if you are on the SCM currently and you provide all your documentation to allow your data to be transferred, the new Infected Blood Compensation Authority will then do a calculation based on you being eligible for the special category mechanism payment, and they will tell you what that is. So you won't need to provide any additional information. They will give you a whole payment that they will make to you based on that uplift. However, if you're on the scheme and you're not on the SCM, but you do believe that you have either had impact via long-term hepatitis C infection, or you have, daily problems because of the treatments that you've had, and you're not currently on the SCM, you can apply to IBCA to go under the health impact route, and they will do an assessment for you then when you go to IBCA, and then you could apply at that stage as well. So there is that option as well.
Okay, and then there's another one relevant to something you've just said just now. Does the monthly payment stop when you're 87, even if you're still alive?
I don't know the answer to that.
No, I don't.
We will ask that question. I wouldn't have thought. I mean, this is off the top of my head, so I wouldn't necessarily have thought so. I think that would be quite unjust. I think that's a benchmark for doing calculations of a lump sum. But one would presume that if you were still alive and you would carry on receiving your payments, I would presume.
Yeah, and there's another one here. Won't there be offers for monthly and lump sum, or is it just one or the other?
Well, they will give you the option as to which one you want to choose. So they will give you offers for both, what the calculations are. So you'll receive two different offers based on taking the monthly payments with the CPI rise or taking the lump sum. And then you'd need to sit down and work out which one is more beneficial to you, or how you want it, or whether you want the freedom to be able to take your lump sum and invest it with some financial management, or whether you prefer the security of the monthly support payments, knowing that they're going to be uplifted naturally for you. So it really is a decision for the individual, but we are hoping that there will be some financial advice that will become available so that you might have people to talk to at the time when you receive those offers.
Brilliant. And just quickly here, what does SCM mean? I think if somebody's asking, I mean, we're terrible for using acronyms, sorry.
Sorry, that's a special category mechanism. So basically, the SCM is a payment which, at the moment, under the current support schemes, they have two bandings for hepatitis C. They have stage 1 hepatitis C payment and stage 2 hepatitis C payment, and that's on the current support schemes. So if you apply to the SCM, basically it uplifts your payment from stage 1 to stage 2, where you don't necessarily have to have cirrhosis. So to go from stage 1 to stage 2 at the moment, you do need to have a diagnosis of cirrhosis by your clinician or by your doctor. They need to sign the paperwork to say that you do have cirrhosis. However, what the SCM enables is if you've got any other day-to-day health impact conditions, either as a result of the hepatitis C infection itself or the treatment, for example, the interferon ribavirin, that affects your health on a daily basis, you can go to your clinician and ask them to certify that, and then you will be uplifted to the stage 2 payments without having to have cirrhosis, but because you have something that affects your life on a daily basis related to either the hepatitis C or its treatment.
Okay, and then just because it's on this slide, and I think that we've got much more information to come. One more was, if you were to take the lump sum for support schemes, how do they calculate the CPI for future years? Do we have any idea about that?
I asked that question as well.
Yeah.
I thought that one might come up. And actually, so if you take it as a lump sum, there's no CPI on it. You basically, you take your lump sum and it becomes your responsibility to invest and create your own income from it. So you basically forfeit the uplift on it if you're not taking it in terms of monthly payments. If you take it as a lump sum, you get the full amount, and therefore they presume there's no need to raise it each month, because then you've got the full amount and you can do as you please with it at that point.
Okay.
So there's more uplift.
Can I just jump in with a couple more that I picked up? Because they're things that we have definitely discussed. Do you understand the meaning of the 6 years in the regulation? I think that probably relates to the 6 years where people don't have the dates that we discussed with Edgar.
Oh, right, yeah. So the 6 years are basically the assumed 6 years that you would have had. Was it Layla prior to cirrhosis? I
think it's cirrhosis for 6 years. And
yeah, it was cirrhosis for 6 years, and then 4 years for decompensated liver or liver cancer is what they assume on the tariffs. However, what they did tell us was that if your medical record shows something completely different to that and shows, the cirrhosis period of being 10 years or the decompensated liver, in your medical notes showing 6 years, they will go with whatever is in your notes. Those presumptions will only be used where you don't have anything else. And that's basically, they have to use some basis for a calculation of the payment.
Lovely, thank you. And someone else is asking, can you apply for the higher rate payment, so the SCM presumably, as it will be, or as it is now, for that arise for treatment for people who have already passed away, sadly?
I think that would be very difficult. I don't know whether you can or you can't, to be perfectly honest. I think that's something that we would need to raise with the support schemes. I think currently the way that it works, you have to complete a form where the person takes the form to their clinician and basically asks them to state what is it that they're currently living with that is affecting them on a day-to-day basis. But one would presume that if that person was stage 1 but had huge, I don't know, one of the ones is like an inhibitor or some kind of autoimmune disease, and it's proven in their records and it shows that they suffered with that for many, many years, I think it's definitely worth asking the support schemes whether you can apply when somebody's registered on the scheme but was died but never got the SCM, because that will certainly make a difference in terms of the actual payments or compensation payments that are made. So it's definitely worth asking that question. Well, I don't know. It hasn't arisen with us on the helpline, so I don't know definitively, unfortunately.
There's just one here that I just think we need to clarify because it's come up a couple of times. I thought that the support payments would continue even after receiving lump sums. So I think we just need to be clear what we're talking about here.
Yes. So the support payments, they will continue for the rest of your life. So you always have your support payments. So previously we were told that the support payments were going to be abolished, but now that's all changed. So the support payments categorically will continue for the rest of your life. You just have a choice as to how you want them. So you can take them as you're receiving them right now. So if you're receiving them on a monthly basis, they will continue exactly as they are. There will be no change there if that's what you want. However, some people have expressed that they don't want the support payments spread out over a number of years. They want it all in one lump sum payment. So they can take that as a lump sum payment and they will also get their compensation as well. So it's just how you want to take your support payments.
Right, shall we let you?
Okay, all right. So I think we're moving on to the next slide now.
Trying.
Oh.
Bear with me one moment. You can still see the slides, can you?
Yes, we can.
Ah, here we go. Perfect.
Lovely. It's still
right.
Same slide for me, the next one. Thank you. So we've got the core supplementary and the infected blood support scheme payments. So as we were just talking about, there are no changes to any support payments until the end of March 2025. So at the moment, everybody's receiving something called an ex gratia payment. That means that it's made without any deduction, without it being deducted from your final compensation amount. So anything that you receive in terms of your monthly payments until the end of March 2025 will not be deducted from your final compensation figure. Any payments up to this date, that's where I've already discussed that. So payments made from April 2025, however, will be deducted from the final compensation payment where people choose to opt out of the support schemes. And there will be no discretionary payments. So on the current support schemes at the moment, we have a lot of discretionary payments. So we have car repairs, we have Motability grants, we have prescriptions, and a whole host of sort of other home improvement grants. But unfortunately, those will all cease from April 2025. And the only one that we know that will continue will be the winter fuel allowance payment, which will be added to your support payments. And that's the only one that will be going on moving forward. And then we've got the support payment top up. So when the Infected Blood Compensation Authority looks at your compensation claim, it will look at your estimated future care and financial loss. And then if these fall below what you are currently receiving from a support scheme, the Infected Blood Compensation Authority will match the support scheme levels. So nobody will be worse off through that. So this kind of gives you an overview, really, of the whole package that you will get from the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. You'll have the tariff, which will be the core payments, and that will be, as we've looked at, things like the injury, social impact, autonomy, finance, and care award. There will be the option of then going down the supplementary route, as we talked about, for either care or for finance if your losses were greater. And then also, if you've had the SCM payment and the health impact, you can use the supplementary route as well. We do know that some people will make multiple claims. So it might be that they are both infected and affected. There will be claims as well that can be made in respect of your children, your parents, your siblings, and your spouse. There are also, we've talked about the support payments and how they will either run alongside in terms of the continuation of the support payments or taking them in a lump sum, and then the support payment top up if necessary. So dates, looking at dates and what is defined as a date in terms of when infection started. And first year of infection is defined in the government literature as first year of infection in which the person could have contracted the infection, if not possible to establish the year in which the infection was contracted. We asked a question this afternoon to IBCA, and we said where there are multiple transfusions, let's say, or if you've had blood products. With blood products, it will go from the first use of blood products in your medical records. And if you've had transfusions and you've had multiple transfusions, it will go from the date of your first transfusion. And whether the directly infected person or someone infected through transmission, and we know that these are important. It has a massive impact on the financial part of the awards and in some parts of the care awards. So the dates surrounding infection are really quite important. This can also impact the eligibility for children and siblings and the awards that they may get depending upon when you were infected and how old your children were at the time, or how old your siblings were, whether they were still living in your household at the time of your infection. And unfortunately, at the moment, we don't really have all the answers to these questions, but we've raised a lot of these points with IBCA, and we've asked for clarity surrounding these issues, and they said they will definitely come back to us with that. And in terms of hepatitis C virus progression, you may need additional health records showing progression. So if you're already on stage 2, and you're receiving the stage 2 payments, these should be recorded in your current infected blood support scheme notes, and that should automatically then again be transferred over to the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. So looking at some of the tariff awards, so these are kind of how the tariffs are structured. And for the first time now, people who suffered an acute infection with the hepatitis C virus will be eligible to apply for compensation. Now, they can't apply directly to the current support scheme as there's no eligibility criteria on the current schemes. However, when the new scheme starts, the Infected Blood Compensation Authority, people with acute HCV infection, i.e. as defined in general as an infection of less than 6 months, will be able to make a claim. And this is how a claim for acute HCV infection will be broken down. So you'll have the tariffs that we've talked about, starting with the Injury Impact Award, which will be £10,000 for acute infection, a Social Impact Award at £5,000, an Autonomy Award at £10,000, a Financial Loss Award at £12,500, and a Care Award at £500, which comes to a grand total of £38,000. And what you do need to note here is that if you've had an acute HCV infection, this is the maximum award that will be payable via the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. Unfortunately, if you've had an acute infection, you're unable to go down the supplementary route for either care or finance, as that's not available to this level of infection. So if we have a look at sort of a typical tariff award for chronic HCV, you can see, and all of these tables are displayed on the IBCA guidelines that we've made reference to, that we said that there is a link to as well. So you will see that the tariff is basically broken down into the category of award. So for something like the Injury Impact Award, depending upon your level of infection with hepatitis C or B, if it is a chronic infection, you will be awarded £60,000. If you have hepatitis C or B and it has developed into cirrhosis, your Injury Impact Award increases from £60,000 to £120,000. And if you move to the third category, which is the hepatitis C or hepatitis B decompensated cirrhosis and or liver cancer and or liver transplantation, that award then moves from 120,000 up to 180,000. So you can see how the respective degrees of illness then have corresponding values in terms of the Injury Impact Award. For the Social Impact Award, it has been a standardised 50,000 across the board for that. And for the Autonomy Award, that has started at 40,000 for hepatitis C chronic, 40,000 for cirrhosis, and 50,000 for decompensated cirrhosis or liver transplantation. So the total award will obviously then be the sum of the amounts from the relevant hepatitis C virus stages, plus adding in your financial loss and plus your care costs. And then there will be made deduction will be made then at that point, less the interim compensation, i.e. for people that have received both the 100,000 and the 210,000, a total of 310,000 will be deducted. And if you remain on an infected blood support scheme, the support payments again will be deducted after April 2025. So looking again at the financial loss awards. So within the tariff, financial loss awards are based on net median UK earnings plus 5%, which is 29,657 per annum. And the reason why they did this and they added 5% was so that they didn't have to calculate a lower rate for financial loss or net median earnings in the past and then create different sums in the future. So they've tried to sort of even it out with this 29,000 and adding in this 5%. So this is not means tested. So higher earners can apply for a higher sum via the supplementary route, which we've talked about. But we also want to make you aware that there will be a cap on the supplementary route as to how much additional finance you can claim under financial loss. But as yet, we have not been provided with that cap. So we do not know at this moment in time how much that cap will be. But we have asked the question again today as to when we will be supplied with that information. And they said they hope to have that before the end of the year. So people given hepatitis C will receive a percentage of that 29,657. And this will basically depend on the hepatitis C stage, whether you're acute, chronic, or have further decompensated liver, when you were born, whether it was before or after 2017, and also whether you were given Hep B or HIV. So if we have a look at the little table or table 9, you can see the milestones for the introduction of major treatments are listed. And it's for those born after 1961, pre what they call the effective treatments, so before the 2016 and earlier, they will receive higher payments of 11,863 per annum if they fall into the chronic category. They will receive 23,726 per annum if they fall into the cirrhosis category, and they will receive 29,657 per annum if they fall into the decompensated cirrhosis or liver cancer category. And then for those people that were born after 1961, when there were more effective management treatment options from 2017, the amount reduces for the various categories to 5,931 for chronic, 17,794 for cirrhosis, and 29,657 for decompensated liver and liver cancer. And for those born in or before 1961, it is 11,863 per annum, 23,726 per annum for cirrhosis, and 29,657 per annum for decompensated cirrhosis and liver cancer. So for those before 1961 have a higher rate payment. So for hepatitis C, it is basically assumed that the introductions of the direct acting antivirals improved people's ability to manage their infections from 2017 and therefore their ability to work in terms of their financial loss. And that's why you can see in table 9 that those financial losses have therefore been reduced if you fell outside of that period. From age 66, which would be retirement age, you will receive 50% of what you received prior to that. That's obviously quite a lot of information there, Rachel and Layla, in terms of the actual finance, and I know that's quite important. I'm just wondering whether we've had any questions or feedback surrounding that.
There have been lots of questions. I'm getting some on my phone. Rachel, I don't know if you have any immediately. I think there was a question about the difference between support schemes and the compensation funds, and whether you can receive them both. So I don't know whether it's worth just reiterating very briefly how they sit together.
Yeah, so I mean, your support scheme, if you're on one of the infected blood support schemes at the moment, so something like SIBS or the England Infected Blood Support Scheme, you will continue to receive your support payments. And if, for example, you don't want to have them in a lump sum, you can carry on having them exactly as they're paid to you right now, and they will continue to hit your bank account like they do for the rest of your life. However, some people don't want to have them as monthly payments. They'd much rather have them all in one lump sum. So the Infected Blood Compensation Authority are giving people the option of having it just in one whole payment. And that's completely separate, from your compensation. You'll also get compensation as well. Although, as we've talked about, there will be some adjustment based on, interim compensation that you've received from the total amount, and also any support scheme payments that you have in the future from future financial loss and care. Not anything that's gone back historically, because that was all ex gratia. They're not part of the calculations until April 2025.
And then another one around, if you go down the supplementary route, could your case be turned down and then your core offering reduced?
Sorry, Layla, you broke up a little bit there. Could I just have that question again, please?
So on the supplementary route, whether there's a risk that your tariff would be reduced if you went down the supplementary route and then they didn't accept your argument. So I think we were talking earlier about that people can apply, even if they're going through the supplementary route, they can receive their tariff payment initially and then continue to go down the supplementary route.
Yeah,
so
I think
there's no risk that if you go for the supplementary route, that could reduce your overall tariff. That's right, isn't it?
I think that's absolutely right. So, I mean, and that gives people a lot of certainty as well. So when we asked the question today, and Layla asked, about this whole idea of the supplementary route, the Infected Blood Compensation Authority made it very clear that they will offer you a tariff-based payment, and then you can accept that payment. You can have your tariff-based payment paid into your bank account, so you're holding that money, and then you can choose to go down the supplementary route. For example, if you had higher financial loss, maybe you were a director of a company, and that 29,000 is not suitable in terms of the actual finance that you've lost, you can then apply with your additional evidence. Once you've received your tariff-based payment, you can apply for the additional supplementary loss. It will be looked at by the assessors, and then if it's agreed, they'll make you an additional payment. But you obviously still have the security of having your basic tariff payment already in your account, so it can't be taken back away from you if you didn't succeed on an additional payment.
Right, thank you. And then there've been a couple of questions around where we are legally with this in terms of what's gone through the legislative process, and where we are in terms of the special category mechanism, I can't never remember the name of the thing that they're calling it, the health impact route, and where that is legal.
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely sure what was meant by legally at the moment. Obviously,
in legislation under the law, what's gone through the
okay. So the SCM part of the scheme has actually not been put into a statutory instrument as yet. So we're waiting for that to come out, and hence the reason why when we asked about what the cap was on the finance payments today, we were told they don't actually know that yet. So it has to go into a statutory instrument, and that will come out at the same time when they give us more information about the affected people. Apparently it's going to be contained within that document. So we should receive all that information together.
Rachel, did you have a couple?
Only one that, I mean, I think I managed to pass most of them on. There was one here about that I think is probably important. It's looking at the tariffs. Are we due to return money when they deduct the interim payment? Is there any assurance that that isn't going to be the case? That, you know, because I appreciate, you know, we can see, can't we, that it's complicated, extremely complicated. People aren't going to lose money, are they? Do we know that?
Could they get less than £310,000?
Yes. But if they're in receipt, they can't. No. And I think that that's why we're going to do more of these sessions, because it's so complicated in breaking it down.
I mean, before they gave the interim payments, they did an overall assessment as to what would be the absolute minimum amount of compensation that would be paid to this community, and it was deemed that, you know, giving the interim payment of 310,000, there would be no clawback on that. So if people have received those payments, they can spend them with confidence, you know, that nobody's going to come knocking at your door asking for those payments back, because that's the absolute minimum that will be paid to this community. So they wouldn't make the payments if they didn't do the calculations. So they wouldn't come back then at any stage and say, well, actually, your payment was only supposed to be 250,000, so you now owe us £60,000 back. It just wouldn't happen.
It's not going to happen, no. And just something that we spoke about yesterday, is there a reliable compensation calculator that we're able to use?
There are ones out there that have been put out by other organisations, and that's been helpful to some people. At the moment, there isn't one that's been set by the government, and I think for most people, I mean, the Haemophilia Society have done one as well, you know, just a very basic one, and we played around with some figures on that. But I think really for you to have a really good, clear understanding of what your compensation will be, it's probably best waiting until the government provide their own calculator, because that's the most accurate way forward. They're the people that are going to be making your compensation payments, so they should be able to design a calculator that is, you know, accurate, that gives you a very good indication as to what you will get in terms of compensation. And we have expressed this on a number of occasions, that it's really, really important for the community to be able to go onto a site and be able to put in their basic data and find out very roughly what their compensation will be. So we have pressed for that on many occasions, and they have said that they are working on it. So please watch this space, and obviously as soon as we get notified that that's ready, we will publish it on our website as well and send you links to it. But I think it's probably best waiting for that, and I think that will happen shortly.
Yeah.
Can I just add one last question in? Someone was asking about, is it the date for effective for things like people like siblings? Is the relevant date the date of infection for their sibling, or is it the date of diagnosis? So if you were living with your brother or sister who had...
Right, so normally everything sort of stems from the date of infection. I think everything within the compensation documents are all relating to date of infection. And obviously we'll come on to this, but for people like children and siblings, obviously the age that you were at the time that person was infected is quite pertinent to compensation, and the amounts will depend upon what age you were when the person was going through that, as to whether you will have a high payment or whether you will be eligible for payment, and so on and so forth. But we'll come on to that.
Okay.
Shall I go on to the next slide and then we can...
Oh, I haven't done Care Awards yet, so I'll just keep on this one.
Okay.
Okay, so Moving on to care awards. So the tariff for care awards assume a specific combination of hours of domestic support and care are needed for people with chronic hepatitis C or progressive liver disease. For example, they assume with chronic hepatitis C virus, you will need 6 hours domestic support per week, equivalent to £5,460 worth of care per year. Additional amounts and types of care are estimated to be needed where HCV has progressed. And you can see in the boxes that are next to you, the care bandings, you can see what they've put in terms of the number of hours that they assume in terms of end of life, high care, moderate, low, domestic support, and then looking at that with a care band description in terms of the number of hours per week and then the cost per annum according to the level of care that you need. Obviously, people who can demonstrate having incurred higher care costs can apply for a higher sum via the supplementary route. So if you look at that care banding and you look at the care costs per annum and you disagree with that and you believe that in the category that you fall into, that you had much, much higher costs in the past, you can be or you can essentially go down the supplementary route and you can provide additional information about the care that you received, and then you can apply for a higher payment. So estates and affected, like we've just very quickly talked about with regard to the SCM and the caps on that, those will be coming out in another statutory instrument that will be released in the next month or so, we hope. And that also contains all the information about estates and the affected. So for the purpose of today, we're not really going to cover estates and affected in too much detail, just because we don't have that information as yet. And obviously we want to try and provide you all with the most accurate, up-to-date information. So as soon as we get that, we will look through that, and then we will hopefully run another webinar looking at estates and affected and how that all comes into play with the statutory instrument. But in general, just looking at estates, the estate in the context of the infected blood compensation is what is owed to someone who has passed away. And this compensation will be distributed as per the instructions in that person's will. And where there is no will, you will need to apply for probate. And again, like I said, when we have some more information about all of the levels and the tariffs, we'll come back and we will do another webinar on that in further detail. There are other payments that the scheme now recognises as well to people that are not necessarily infected but are affected by what has happened. And those categories include people like siblings. So those can be biological and adoptive siblings can receive compensation, as well as step siblings and others in a position of a sibling while under 18 and lived in the same household as an infected person of at least 2 years after the onset of their infection. Another category of people that will be eligible for compensation payments are children of an eligible infected person. And again, that includes biological children, adopted children, and others in the position of a child, i.e. a stepchild, while under 18 and were cared for and lived with the person for at least 1 year since the parent or whoever became infected. And essentially, will this change? We are so acutely aware that there are so many concerns and questions about the awards, how they've been calculated and what this might mean for people given hepatitis C, For example, we are absolutely aware of the disparity and the differences between the hepatitis B virus, the hepatitis C virus, and the HIV awards. And we have raised this with the government and with the Infected Blood Compensation Authority, and we are waiting some answers from them with regard to that. Also, why people with additional health problems currently on the SCM will need to go through the supplementary route. We were originally hoping, when we first looked at the guidance from the government, that they would mirror somewhat what we've got on the current infected blood support schemes, that we would have a stage 1, a stage 2, and that people in the SCM would automatically fit into the stage 2 category. But unfortunately, we've been given something that is slightly different to that. We've got a lot more categories now open for the hepatitis C virus, and we don't have sort of a clear understanding of where the SCM fits into all of this. But again, we are acutely aware of that. We are advocating for you, and we are trying to get some clarity on this matter so that we can give you, up-to-date and accurate information. Also, the risk of people being lost in the transfer from the infected blood support schemes to the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. We're aware that people have raised concerns around that. Also, and this is something that I am so acutely aware of from being on the helpline, just how people will find historical medical records and what happens if they can't. And this is something that I will be constantly raising with the Infected Blood Compensation Authority on behalf of people that cannot find medical records, that it's grossly unfair that where people have had, historic blood transfusions and all the medical records have been destroyed, where they can't find those records, how can they prove they had infected blood? So we will be pushing for that as well for this community. And how the Infected Blood Compensation Authority will engage with people across the community directly, not just through organisations like us. We do know from our focus group sessions and the feedback that we've received that individuals want to talk to the Infected Blood Compensation Authority themselves. They don't want to necessarily do it through an intermediary like us. And we have absolutely passed on that information, and we've said that we would really love to see some webinars like this from IBCA, where individuals coming onto these webinars can ask questions directly and get direct answers. And they said that they are in the process of trying to put something together, and again, we will keep you updated with that. So please do keep telling us your concerns about the compensation system. We are here to help you and advocate for you as much as we possibly can. We are doing everything that we possibly can with the issues and questions that you've raised. But like I said, if there are any more, please keep them coming through to us, and we will do our very best to get them addressed. So action you can take now. So more information is going to be coming through the IBCA newsletter, so please make sure you're signed up for those. We also send out our own bulletins with infected blood updates, so please make sure that you're registered to receive our updates from the Hepatitis C Trust, and we'll make you aware of anything that is important. And if you're registered with any of the infected blood support schemes, make sure that they have your right contact details. We know historically that so many people were left on the old Skipton schemes and never knew that it was being transferred across to the new schemes in 2017. So please, please make sure they have your up-to-date contact details so that you don't get lost in that process. And if you think that you may need to apply or provide evidence, you can start gathering that right now. Obviously, we here at the Hep C Trust on the helpline can give you some advice and help you with that. We've kind of outlined already some of the evidential requirements that might be needed. So please start putting all of your documentation together, because it will be really helpful in the months to come. And if your family member was registered with a previous support scheme, such as the Skipton Fund, like I mentioned earlier, you can request these documents from Russell Cook solicitors, and you can email them at skiptonfund@russell-cook.co.uk. And then we've got some further information and some links that I've referenced through this webinar from IBCA and information from the Hepatitis C Trust. And obviously these slides will be available for you to download. And again, a copy of the presentation if you want to go back and listen to it in your own time. And I think that pretty much covers that last slide.
That was amazing, Susan. Somebody just put in the chat there, thank you so much, Susan. You're brilliant at explaining it so clearly. It's super complicated, I know. Can I jump in, Layla? There's quite a few questions that have come up, and this really concerns us. We've talked about this. There's no information readily available regarding about legal representation for claims to be made. Are there any recommended solicitors backed by the scheme? Will we all get caseworkers? And I know that's slightly different, but then there's another one around there's supposed to be financial advice available. Where and how do we get it? The idea of legal advice, solicitors, etc., because it's really, you've got to be really careful. So is there anything that, you can feed back on that?
I think that's so important, and we have raised it as the Hepatitis C Trust on a number of occasions with the Infected Blood Compensation Authority, saying, this community, there are lots of people that are elderly, there are lots of people that are very sick, very vulnerable. They will receive these letters from the Infected Blood Compensation Authority, which have choices to be made. You will get, one choice if you want to go down, the support scheme route, and you'll have another choice if you want to go down the tariff route. And, you have to be able to do the calculations, work out what's going to be best for you, how you're possibly going to take that money, how you're going to invest that money, how it's going to grow for you, how it's going to work for you, what's best in your circumstances. There are so many different things to consider that it is potentially an absolute minefield for a lot of people. And that's why we've stated that it is absolutely essential that they provide proper legal representation so that you can have confidence when you go to your solicitor that they're looking at your case in its entirety and they're working out financially what is the best option for you. Obviously, we're here, we can help, but there is because we're a limited team, we don't get any funding from the government for providing this service. So, there's a lot of work to be done with a very few members of staff available to do it. We do our best, but obviously if everybody's getting these letters at the same time, it will take us a while to get round to people. So we are pushing for proper legal representation where then you can make a decision. You can possibly come through to us and ask us for our opinion if you just want to get some sort of some clarity on it, or you want to talk it through with somebody. And also, again, financial advice is so important because it's about knowing, do I want to take those monthly payments, for the rest of my life? Or actually, do you know what? If I get £1 million payment and I put it in I speak to a wealth planner and I put it into a secure government bond, I might make 9% over the course of the year, in which case I'd earn a much greater income from using it like that. But your financial advisor will be able to sit down and talk through all those options with you, talk you through high risk investments, low risk investments. There's something out there for absolutely everybody. And on very large sums of compensation, the returns that you can make could be really substantial. So it's absolutely worthwhile speaking to somebody with regard to wealth planning or financial investment. And hopefully we will have some further clarification from IBCA about, appropriate organisations to be used and how that will be funded. And also, again, with the legal representation, who we can use and how we can get people signed up and get them looking at their individual cases.
That's brilliant, thank you. And I just wanted to quickly raise this. Somebody put a comment in, I think it's really important. Please make it clear we will not accept DWP caseworkers and need access to independent legal advice from a panel of firms with demonstrable experience of this scandal. And, and absolutely, that is a message that we continually take back.
I think that's
just to reassure the person who put that comment. We have so many questions regarding specific examples. I don't know if Layla, if I sent any for you that were more I guess just to say, there's been like several questions put in saying, could we have a webinar to be done for specific examples? So one to be done for acute natural clearers. Absolutely, we will take on all the comments and action them. And I'm sorry if we didn't get a chance to answer any more of the more specific questions. I don't know what you've got in yours there, Layla. Have you got any?
No, I'm still trying to catch up with it, to be honest. When I had the slides up, I couldn't actually see the Q&A, so it's quite tricky to
I think for the community, having real confidence in, you know, who's being recommended to them, that they are impartial, that they're not linked to other government departments. I think all those things are really important, and we will certainly be sending feedback on that to make sure the community does have. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about, you know, the Hepatitis C Trust as well, is that, you know, there are people on the helpline, there are people who are here to be able to offer some kind of advice. And obviously we're a registered charity for people with hepatitis, so you get an element of impartiality from us as well. So hopefully that will continue, and there'll be more people that are available to look at some of those questions for you, and you can get some reassurance from us.
Yeah, there is one quick question on the bottom here, and that's about tax. And we haven't said it, but I think it's important to say this, because the question is, if you take a lump sum, would your interest attract tax?
Yes.
The interest would, but not the lump sum.
Not the principal, no. So the actual amount that you get paid is exempt, so that's your compensation. But, you know, most people will be receiving sort of from £800,000 upwards. It's not going to take very long before you get above the threshold where you have to pay tax on that. That's where a wealth planner becomes very important, because it's not tax evasion, it's basically financial planning that will enable you to put money into either bonds or trusts or in a wrapper where they are protected from tax. So that's definitely a conversation if you are worried about the tax implications, you're a higher rate earner, or you're on benefits or any of that kind of thing. Because obviously if you are receiving government benefits, the scheme does say that it is exempt for government benefits. That's only your principal. That's not the tax that you earn. After you earn £6,000 worth of tax, you have to declare that to the benefits agency, and therefore you may not be entitled to government benefits then at that point. So to make sure that you're compliant with all of that and you don't get any problems with HMRC or DWP or however it might be, really do absolutely imperative that you get proper tax advice or financial planning advice, because on lump sums, like I said, of over £1 million, it will be, even in a current account, you will probably go over your threshold in terms of interest payments.
And I just want to put a note of caution in there. I know you're about to speak, Layla. Even we have been approached by companies saying, we would like to be really careful who you approach. You know, it needs to be a reputable organisation, whether that's the solicitors that you use. And I think somebody put the comment in there, it needs to be with, you know, demonstrable experience of what you've all been through, the scandal. And, you know, we can really push for those details to be released by IBCA, because there are a lot of nasty people out there, and you've got to be really careful when you're talking about money.
And that came from IBCA as well, actually, that if you're approached by someone who says they're from IBCA, be cautious about whether they genuinely are. I think it's important to be a bit careful at the moment. There's an interesting question. I don't know. I don't think you can answer this. How do you prove you're a stepchild? So this is going to be a whole new layer of documentation that we're going to have to start to get to grips with to support.
I guess it would come down to proof of the relationship between the parents, or, you know, and then if you all moved into the same household and they were living together, and, you know, the parents can prove that they had maybe joint bank accounts, or they were living together, then if the children were under a particular age, it's only natural that children would have been living in the same household as well. I'm sure there would be documentation, bills or receipts or whatever to prove that people had the same address during those respective periods.
And I think this is going to be a process, isn't it, with IBCA and with everyone involved, about how they demonstrate the how you evidence a lot of the new things that haven't been part of the systems to date. And then another question, the figures that we've shown today, are they the same for estates or only for living beneficiaries or people?
Those figures that we've shown are based on beneficiaries, infected beneficiaries living, not the estate payments. We haven't had any guidance as to that as yet.
Still waiting for that. So again, that's another potential future session, webinar that we can set up. I'm conscious of time. We've got 3 minutes. Rachel, were there any other pressing questions that you've come across? Or Susan, is there anything you'd like to say to wrap up? I'm sorry that we haven't been able to answer all of the questions. We'll try and pull these out and put them into either our bulletin or a separate email or something, just to try and get as much of the kind of the questions answered as possible. But we've got 150 odd questions.
We have spoken to IBCA, and we've said to them, it's much better that they answer these questions than we do, because they're the people with all the answers.
Yeah.
So we've stressed to them that the newsletters are brilliant, but we need to see real questions in there from the community being answered. So we've asked at the Hep C Trust for a little section in the newsletter that comes out, which answers the community's questions. So please, if you have some questions that you really want answered, send them through to us and we'll pass those over to IBCA, and then they will start feeding them through into their newsletters, so that when you read them, there's something of real value in there for you, and you go, actually, that's really helpful. I needed clarification about that, and that answers that. So the best people to get this information is direct from the horse's mouth. So we'll do whatever we can to aid that process and pass those over to them. And they said they're very, very happy to answer them.
Perfect. Okay, we'll probably have to end this now. We didn't actually organise who was going to.
We didn't know
who was going to close it, but thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I hope it's been really useful. Thank you, Susan, very much for taking us through all of that. There is so much information, in particular around hepatitis C and the financial loss. Everything is so complicated. So we will keep these going, and we will try and find more interactive ways to engage with everyone, and do everything we can over the coming months. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.